Well, this one's for you. Superman 1978, really, Superman the movie, is one of the most, I guess, monumental, legendary films of all time, just going off of cultural impact. The film was critically acclaimed, the film was commercially acclaimed, there's that, of course, when it came out, but again, it is legendary. So many movies nowadays owe Superman the movie to their existence. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a product of Superman the movie. I believe Kevin Feige mentioned that Superman the movie is sort of a model for the tone and the style of those films. And even Zack Snyder, the complete opposite, right, filmmaker when it comes to superhero movies compared to Marvel, he had Henry Cavill wear the Christopher Reeve outfit, the classic Superman suit, and that's how he knew that Henry Cavill was his Superman. So it is the blueprint, okay, for a lot of films. And as someone who loves Zack Snyder, it is something that I ponder. This movie is something that I feel conflicted with because so much of me loves the classic Superman. I love Superman comic books. All-Star Superman is very much a Christopher Reeve, esque Superman story. That's a great comic book story if you haven't read it. It's also been made into a movie. But then I love Man of Steel. And Man of Steel with Zack Snyder is sort of it's like turning that Christopher Reeve Superman on its head. It's not so, I hate to say, I'm going to use a lot of phrases as I talk about, both movies that, is not really to offend Superman the movie. It's not really to throw any shade to it. It's just, it feels like it's more, it's just easy to say it this way, but Superman the movie just feels, more like a happy-go-lucky, everything is all good type of movie, right? Whereas Man of Steel just feels more like a sophisticated movie. That doesn't mean, Superman the movie is a bad movie. At least, I'm not saying that yet. I'm just saying that there's a difference between the two. But here's the funny part, is that when I watched Man of Steel, it took me a long time for me to understand what Zack Snyder was trying to do. And I really embraced it after that, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with it. Superman the movie, I watched it when I was a kid, I'm sure. It never had any nostalgia with me at all, obviously. I'm 24 years old, so, it's just, Christopher Reeve is not my Superman for my generation. Henry Cavill is my Superman, along with Brandon Routh a little bit. But really, it's Henry Cavill. I, as a Snyder fan, as a Superman fan, it's weird because I am on both camps in many different ways. Like I said, I love the Christopher Reeve, smiley, save the kitten, type of attitude with Superman, because it's also very much like an all-star Superman where everything is perfect. He is the most perfect human being ever. Like, he makes no mistakes. He never lies. He is just perfect, right? And then there is Zack Snyder's Superman and that world where I love that too. And the interesting thing about that world is that Zack Snyder was trying to build Superman and, his other heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, all of those, into their perfect idealistic selves. But he wanted to start from the very beginning. He wanted to start from hell. And you can't go to heaven without going through hell. So that's what he was trying to do. And so the Superman we get in Zack Snyder's Justice League, I would say, is a wise, he is like, after he's been dead and he comes back to life and he wears that black outfit, he is Superman. He is that Superman. And in many ways, he's still not, cheesy and smiley in this, He's just a much more realistic, optimistic take on the character. It's the Christopher Reeve Superman in Zack Snyder's world. And that, to me, is perfect. So I love that journey, and that's really what I'm here for. But why am I doing this video? Number one, I'm a conflicted Superman fan. Like I said, I felt like it was my duty to at least watch this movie, really give it a chance in my adulthood, in my Zack Snyder loving phase, to watch this film. Because I do respect it, nonetheless, okay? Even though I'm not necessarily biased towards it, but I do respect it. But I had to watch it. I just had to, because it does hold a place in my heart in some way, shape, or form. And then there's reason number 2. We hit 1,000 subscribers, everyone. Just incredible. I am so grateful for you. The fact that any of you, any number of you, decided to go out of your way, press that subscribe button, watch my videos, you know, whether you've watched them all, whether you watched them all in their entirety when they come out, whatever. The fact that you've just put in the time to watch me, see me, hear me speak, and make me feel like I sort of somewhat know what I'm saying just means the world to me. I couldn't have done it without you, clearly, and I do it for you. I do it for myself. This is a perfectly symbiotic relationship, and I just hope that we can continue to grow, and I just hope that we can continue fostering a community. I hope I can find my niche here in the internet, on YouTube, and I hope that there's a place for me in your life in some way, shape, or form. I love saying in some way, shape, or form. It's just fun. But again, thank you so much. So I figured this was a perfect 1,000, celebratory video to do. As a Zack Snyder fan, a lot of you probably, those were my first videos that went viral, at least viral to me. So it's sort of my thank you to, it's kind of interesting because a lot of Zack Snyder fans would not probably watch this video. I mean, a lot of you probably would because I know you respect the OG Superman, but this is a conversation that we both need to have as Zack Snyder fans, right? So I think, reviewing this film, talking about it is really coming full circle with my channel and who we are and the videos that I've done and what I love and what you love. I think it's great. Thank you so much again to all of you, and I'll catch you at the end. Whatever the fuck that means. That could mean whatever, if you think about it. All right, so I got a bunch of notes here, and I didn't order them in terms of positive or negatives or whatever. I'm just gonna fucking talk about this film, and I'm sorry if it's jumbled and I go from talking about the story to talk about whatever the fuck and then talk about the story. But here we go. First note here, his biggest difference is tone and style, of course. Yes, the tone and style of Superman, the movie, is way different, of course, than Zack Snyder. I mean, it's saturated. The fucking costume of Christopher Reeve it's beautiful, by the way. I mean, it's a beautiful costume. But I mean, you look at Man of Steel and then you look at fucking Christopher Reeve Superman and you're like, what the fuck? And I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to say it right here, right fucking now. I love this Superman. I love All-Star Superman. I love comics Superman. I love Christopher Reeve Superman. But the trunks, let's move on. Let's move on, everyone. Let's move on. The trunks were a product of wrestling culture in the United States and really all over the world. It represented, strength, wearing the trunks. A lot of, it's very Herculean. It's just very wrestling-esque, right? Classic wrestling from the 40s and the 30s. But we got to move on from that, okay? This guy's an alien. He don't need to show that he's powerful through the fucking trunks. So we got to move on. It's a beautiful costume, though. I would kill to have that fucking costume and wear that costume. Do not get it twisted, people. But yeah, the colors of the movie, of course, are different than the Superman that, the Zack Snyder Superman that we love. This is a fucking Marvel movie in 1978. That is what this film is. And at the time, I fucking would have ate this shit up probably. But now, here's the thing. If there's any Marvel-esque film that I would watch, it would be, partly James Gunn films like The Suicide Squad, and I'll watch Superman Legacy. I'll see what will happen with that. But I would watch Superman, the movie. It's very charming. There are some points where it does kind of get a little bit too much into that route. But overall, when we stay with Superman and Lois Lane, that's where the meat of the film is for me. And it's very Marvel-y, but it's so wholesome and pure, like because of the nature of the character. It's really not because of the style of the movie. It's because of who the character is. Whereas a lot of movies who try to copy that Marvel aesthetic, it's not because your characters are interesting. You're trying to copy the style, and you're trying to have that make up for your characters and your story. And that's why a lot of these movies fall flat. It's really what happens to a lot of superhero films, of course, that are trying to copy the Marvel formula and the Marvel success. The Krypton sequence in this film is fantastic. The beginning of it, brilliant. Oh my God, the special effects, incredible. It's a little weird because when you watch the beginning part of the film, it's very grainy, but then the film, when it comes back to normal, when it comes to, present day, it's very beautiful. It's very grainy, but I think it adds to the antiquity of Krypton, right? But at the same time, it's so futuristic. And just the style of it, Marlon Brando, are you serious? He's wearing fucking, the glowing Superman suit. It's so fucking cool. And they were already setting up Zod and the Phantom Zone and all of that. Just brilliant. Jor-El's speech to Kal-El in Superman the movie will always be top fucking tier. I mean, I can't really decide, honestly, between Jor-El's speech and even a Kevin Costner speech from Man of Steel, or of course Russell Crowe, who played Jor-El in Man of Steel. I can't really decide. Just brilliant dialogue from both of these actors and characters in their respective stories. But Jor-El's speech to Kal-El, just absolutely brilliant, and I love how his part of the speech is used in Brandon Routh's Superman Returns, when Brandon Routh kind of tells that to his son. It's just beautiful, but that part, where it's like the son becomes the father and the father the son, like it's just fucking beautiful. And all my hopes and dreams travel with you. And I think I was quoting Russell Crowe's Jor-El there, but who gives a fuck? It all melts together, and that's a good thing.
You will make my strength your own. See my life through your eyes, as your life will be seen through mine. The son becomes the father, and the father the son.
Now, here's what's interesting, story-wise, of course, where Superman, the movie, and Man of Steel, Zack Snyder, it completely differentiates, right? Is, at first, I was thinking, this is a pretty sophisticated, serious take on the character, even with Superman, the movie, but as it kept going, I realized the tone and the style of it, and then a huge part of it, of course, is Pa Kent, Superman's adopted father. He dies in this one through a heart attack, which I think is very powerful. I've always loved that from the comic lore, how he dies from a heart attack and he makes Superman sort of feel like, it kind of teaches him a lesson a little bit. It shows him that, yeah, there's some things that I can't change. I can't stop some of these things, even though how powerful I am. But the movie, of course, it kind of destroys that, where he is able to do the impossible. And he could have prevented his father, well, maybe not. He probably couldn't have prevented his father's death. He would have needed to go really back in time. But that's what he does, of course, towards the very end of the movie. He saves Lois Lane because she dies, and then he saves her by going back in time. And he couldn't have really done that with his father's death, so I guess he still learns his lesson there. But at the same time, I'm going through a lot of threads here. Keep on track here, Super. Yes, Pa Kent, he had the fear, of course, in Man of Steel, of his son being revealed to the world, being rejected, and not being accepted, right? And being castigated. In Superman the movie, Pa Kent does say, at first we were afraid, Ma Kent and I were afraid of showing you to the world. We were afraid that they were going to take you away from us, they were going to reject you or whatever, but now as you've grown, I've realized that you're very special and that you need to show the world your powers, who you are, because there's something very special about you. And I thought that was very nice. And it showed that, the thing about Zack Snyder's take on these characters and superhero lore in general is that he deconstructs these every single one of these characters, he deconstructs them. Even Superman's parents were not perfect, right? They were evolving on their own as well. Here in Superman the movie, everyone's already perfect. Everyone's evolved, every single character. And that just is what it is. It's a different take. This is Superman as we know it from the comics, right? It's beautiful, it's perfect. But, I do go back and forth, and I will connect sort of a little bit of my frustrations with some of this towards the very end, or towards later when I talk about the going back in time and sort of the end of the film. But that's a clear distinction between the two. And I also will say Superman the movie doesn't really do a lot of effort to build Superman's parents as characters. And on the contrary, Man of Steel fucking does that, which is awesome. Because, they don't do the whole, you fucking came through the rocket, and we picked you up when you were a kid. They didn't do that. They did build Superman's parents better, I think, and gave them more, I don't know. I mean, you have fucking Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. I should fucking hope so. So, there's that. I'll say how Christopher Reeve Clark Kent got his suit in the film was a little weird. It was a little too sudden and too quick. It's very Marvel-y. It's very modern superhero filmish, where it just shit happens. Now, granted, it does happen a little bit with Man of Steel, but I beg to differ because, you go to the fucking ship, he has this whole discourse with his father, it's a huge fucking thing, and he does do that in Superman 2. It just feels a little bit more warranted in Man of Steel than it does in Superman the movie. In Superman the movie, he just all of a sudden he just knows how to fly at this point. In Man of Steel, we saw how he was able to get that power. But here's the thing, here's the part where Superman the movie just really fucking shines, and that is the relationship between Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, Clark Kent and Lois Lane. That is my favorite part of the movie by far, and I love just seeing Superman be Superman in the movie. But when Lois Lane and Superman meet, like, you really fucking feel that, like, you really do. It's beautiful, and it transcends any fucking formula for a movie, superhero movie formula that you want or whatever. It's just fucking pure, It just becomes a different movie. It becomes a romantic movie, You can't help but be allured by it. And Christopher Reeve is God tier Superman. He is just fucking, oh my God. He is the epitome of like a perfect Superman. Just my God. Not only is he incredibly handsome, but just his charm, his attitude, his voice, his execution of the character. And Lois Lane portrays someone who's very confident perfectly, but also someone who can be, swooped by her feet. Is that how you fucking say it? Swept? I don't fucking know. As you could see, I was not a ladies' man. But she just plays it perfectly. She is the fucking top tier reporter. But at the same time, when she meets someone like Superman, she is just bewildered, and it's brilliant. She plays that amazing. And I swear to God, this movie has like the best, like, I'm not going to say the best, but one of the best Lois Lane sort of monologues ever. It's like one of the first times where you really got to understand how Lois Lane felt for Superman and how she felt being with him, and how magical she felt being with him. It's a scene where they're both flying, and there's her voice is like echoed, and it's sort of, trying to tell you that she's speaking to herself in her head, and she's thinking about this as she's with Superman flying.
Can you read my mind? Do you know what it is that you do to me? I don't know who you are. Just a friend from another star. Here I am, like a kid out of school, holding hands with a god. I'm a fool.
Clearly she's falling in love with him. She's just so like swooned by him. But it is something beyond that. It is like a deep appreciation. She's the one that understands him. She's the first one that got to know him in this world. She is just in love with who he is as a person, with Superman. And it's beyond, oh God, we're flying, but like she's really taking, what she's doing with Superman and really relating it to something grander, like just a once in a lifetime thing, for anyone. This is, I am me and I love this, but this is so objectively amazing. I am just speechless, and the way that I feel being with this person, It's completely not journalistic. I mean, she's a reporter. It's so anecdotal and biased, but at the same time, I think she felt like she was saying the truth for everyone, and she was speaking for everyone, and basically saying, if you were in my shoes, you would be feeling this exact same thing with a person like Superman. It was just so beautiful to hear. And in Man of Steel, Zack Snyder's the way that he has his story with Amy Adams and Henry Cavill, they have great chemistry. I think it's beautiful too, and I think it's a more realistic take on it, and it's a different path for sure. They both do the same thing. Lois Lane is the only person that understands who Superman really is, and Superman reveals himself to this person. And it's beautiful to see. And this Lois Lane, Margot Kidder's Lois Lane, just is in love with Superman, and she understands Superman, and that's the most important thing. And she is swooned by him, and at the same time just so objectively allured and interested in this man, and that's Lois Lane. But yeah, Christopher Reeve being Superman, the back and forth of Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder, just beyond anything, just supersedes the superhero genre. It's no fucking formula or anything. It's just purity. That's what it is. And now with the first negative of the film, or I don't know, I think I've said one negative so far, but this is the second, probably, one of the worst negatives of the film. Lex Luthor. Gene Hackman, I'm sure, I have not seen any of his films really, other than this one. I'm sure he's a legendary actor. That's what I've heard, at least. And clearly Kevin Spacey's character, take on the character from Superman Returns, is very Gene Hackman-y. But he just does a much better job. But Gene Hackman, Superman, it's just the times. It's 1978, but he's very smart, but at the same time, I think overall, it's just a dumb take on the character. It's very antiquated. He's just, he has this sidekick, and it's a lot of the comedic relief of the film falls on the villain. Which is I guess, I don't know, I understand the feel-goody nature of having your villain be the comic relief of the film, but I want my Superman film where the villain is fucking serious, where I am afraid of him. And Superman 2, Zod, was not very comedic. I mean, he was fucking Zod, and in many ways, Michael Shannon's General Zod is an homage to the Zod in Superman 2. It's completely an evolution, but it is an homage. But here, Lex Luthor, my God, I'm not a fan of this take on the character. It's just, he's very smart or whatever, and he, at the end of the day, just wants fucking, real estate. He wants land because land equates power and equates to wealth. And so I used to be one of those people that used to shit on that. He just wants land. Like, why? But no, I get his reasoning because, of course, land, it does mean wealth. It means influence. It means power. But also, I don't know, now that I think about it, he said, the West Coast, we think of San Francisco and Los Angeles. If I destroy that part of the world and then I take ownership of that part of the world, of the U.S., if it creates this new Lex Luthor land, and I take ownership of that section of the U.S., well, I will have all the wealth and power. And it's I don't know if you destroy everything there, you kind of take away the purpose of that land. It's just kind of dumb. Now that I think about it, but it's the correct idea, right? Real estate, land, wealth. I get it. Yeah, it turned out to be just really just overall dumb. Never in a superhero film do you want to make your villain a comedic relief. It's just not cool. I mean, you can have comedic relief, of course, with anyone, but it depends, of course. But Lex Luthor, I don't know. It's just, and obviously he wasn't really the comedic relief. It was his interaction with his sidekick, but it really just melded together, and I just didn't really care for either. Just not my cup of tea at all. And as I understand it, people love this Lex Luthor, and a lot of people love Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor in Smallville, which I have seen, by the way, and I do not like. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's very cheesy. I think it's very corny, so that's another fucking hot take. Maybe that's another video that I'll do when I hit, 2,000 subscribers, and I'll talk about Smallville. I have not seen Smallville at all. I don't want to. It's just not my cup of tea at all. And also, it's his opinion, Michael Rosenbaum, it's his opinion. I'm not trying to shit on him or anything, but he did say, a little bit of he did kind of hit back against Jesse Eisenberg's take on Lex Luthor. He might have been speaking about Kevin Spacey, but I don't think so, because Kevin Spacey is sort of an amalgamation of Gene Hackman and Michael Rosenbaum, But Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is the most different out of all of these Lex Luthors. And I think in a podcast with James Gunn, Michael Rosenbaum was essentially kind of saying,
if there were a Lex Luthor in this movie, and there's a lot of other villains, so it may not be Lex Luthor.
And you are the best Lex. Let's admit it. We know you're the best Lex.
Come on, you're being funny.
I'm not being funny. You're definitely the best Lex.
Really?
Definitely.
But not right for your movie.
Not right for my... I didn't say there was even a Lex in the movie. So.
I know, but if there were a Lex Luthor, promise me this.
Uh-huh.
he'll have gravitas, or he'll be Lex Luthor. He won't be playing Lex Luthor, but he's more acting like this character, or this, or goofy, or crazy. He's going to be something that's grounded and real. I know you. I'm sure that's
everything's
the case.
Grounded and real. Yeah, everything's grounded and real.
Because I'm not saying anybody's done that. I'm just saying that
maybe somebody's done that.
Maybe.
It's his opinion, of course. He has every right to say it. I just think it was unprofessional, given that he's portrayed the character too. But I don't like his take on the character, so there's that. All right, so this is where we get into the turning back time part of the video, where I talk about the film in the video about turning back time. Jesus God, that's so dumb. Almost as dumb as turning back time. But yeah, look, this is what he does. Superman, Lois Lane fucking dies in the film, which was a very powerful moment in the film. And Superman, he turns back time out of his rage. And, he's just, blah. He turns back time is a pretty cool sequence, but turning back time is, I think, a little bit too much at this point. Like, I like the fact that we have a Superman who can do that. I think that's very cool. The fact that he can turn back time, I think he's supposed to do that. Superman is supposed to be able to do nearly everything. I think that's part of the allure of the character. And I think you can make him learn shit. You don't have to give him everything, from the very beginning. But you can have him learn his abilities as he goes on, and he can become more powerful. I think that's doable, but I think he should be able to do basically everything, for the most part, if you want to have Superman, like, for sure. Even though Zack Snyder, he kind of chose to give the turning back time to the Flash, I think that makes more sense character-wise, just, really solidifying, okay, Superman is almost as fast as the Flash, but he can't turn back time or anything. He can't go back in time. That's the Flash. I respect that. I do. But I also do respect the idea of giving Superman the ability to do everything. But here, clearly, because everything's so fucking perfect, Superman is able to turn back time. He does that. I found a problem with this. I think this completely destroyed the legitimacy of the essence of the morality, the ethics of the character, because Jor-El, in the movie, Marlon Brando's character, he says it multiple times in the film, like, you are not to interfere with human history. Like, you're not supposed to do that because you're very powerful. And that also means, don't fucking, like, really, really meddle with, like, possibly government and politics, right? Because, like, who you are you should be sort of it's very godlike in the sense of, like, you should be kind of, like, in the outskirts, and you should just kind of be lightly touching things here and there, making sure that things don't spiral out of control, but you're not supposed to really go fucking deep inside into the wells of human interaction and really fuck with shit because of your powers and your abilities and really who you are and your morality, right? That's how I took it as, but he did also say, fucking human history, don't fuck with that. And so he totally fucked with that. But again, in that sequence where he loses his mind and he's about to turn back time, he gets hints of Jor-El's speech of that. But he also gets Pa Kent, him telling, you're here for a reason, there's something special about you.
It is forbidden for you to interfere in human history. One thing I do know, son, and that is you are here for a reason. It is forbidden.
All those things I can do, all those powers. And I couldn't even save him.
I feel the same, or do I? I don't know. But I just, when he turned back time, he was completely saying, fuck you to Jor-El. Like, I'm going to do this. It was a very selfish thing to do. For him to go back in time and save Lois Lane is a very selfish thing to do. But at the same time, I can see how it is an evolution of what happened with Pa Kent, where Superman, at this time, he was like, she didn't die of a heart attack. She died of a natural disaster, and I can prevent that, so I will. And for the first time, he does become more powerful, and he, in many ways, evolves to disrupt what he thought he could not control. And control what he could not control, that is. So he evolved in that sense because he did feel awful when his dad died, and he did say, I can do all these things, but I can't save my dad. But in this time, he, something that was out of his control, technically, he turned back time and he saved her. And so I see that evolution for himself as a character, but also it's kind of a little bit too much. It's just, and it really, at the end of the day, makes it feel like there's just, I don't know, it's just like anything is fine, you know? Like if you die from like fucking a heart attack or whatever the fuck, I mean, like what is Superman gonna monitor what you eat and how you eat and that you know, you exercise so you don't die? Like it's just like no, like, you know, so you leave natural causes and you leave that for Superman to learn his lesson that he can't save everyone. But as far as everything else, destruction-wise, natural disasters, all of that, he could just prevent all of that. But it also, at the end of the day, there's just no stakes. A lot of people, you know, including some people's opinions who I respect, you know, that they'll say, you know, fucking Man of Steel just had a bunch of destruction and that's not supposed to happen in a Superman movie. But I'm like, and then you see Superman the movie and everything is fucking fine. He's literally fucking, he's saving all these people. He's saving literally the ecology of going from going to shit. He's fixing everything, right? Everything, not just saving human beings. He's saving nature. He's doing all these things. And I get that and I see the beauty in that. But like at the same time, there's just no stakes. And Lois Lane dying would have been so fucking badass, you know, to have that happen in the movie. But of course, it's a feel-good movie at the end of the day. Everything has to be fine. It's Superman. So he has to turn back time and everything's fine. And all of a sudden, when he does that, it's just like, well, fucker, like, you have no contest. No one can beat you then, which I know is the character of Superman, right? He's so powerful, no one can beat him. But at least in Man of Steel, we knew that he was going to win, and we knew that he's a badass, and we knew that he could just fucking do everything. But there are stakes involved. And really, Michael Shannon really tested him. And then even in Batman v Superman, Lex Luthor totally beat Superman on an emotional level. That's what people don't fucking understand. Here in this movie, it doesn't fucking matter what he does. It doesn't matter what he does. The only thing that got him was kryptonite, of course, you know, but like, which is actually interesting. I like how in Batman v Superman, it's Lois Lane who is underwater and Superman saves her. Even though in Superman the movie, Lois Lane doesn't go in fucking underwater. For some reason, there's a correlation with kryptonite and water. I don't know what it is, but you know, with in Superman the movie, Lex Luthor puts a fucking collar, a kryptonite collar on Superman. He throws him into the water and he's fucking, you know, he's borderline drowning. And then the female sidekick, sort of Lex Luthor saves Superman, but she goes into the water and saves him. It's very Batman v Superman-like, and I appreciate that. But anyways, I'm going off track. But yeah, I mean, it's just there's no stakes, and it kind of kills any tension, any climax that the movie had. So that's my thing, but I can see how it's an evolution, and I can see how he himself, in many ways, it's very Man of Steel-like, where he decided to do the thing that he wanted to do by his own accord. Like, he was inspired, you know, by Jor-El and Pa Kent, but ultimately he decided he had that rage in him, he had that ability in him to unleash this power and save Lois Lane. Like, it came from him, you know, fundamentally. And I understand that, it's pretty cool, but at the end of the day, there's no fucking stakes, and no one dies, everything's fine. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just, this is where the Superman, the classic Superman formula, Marvel formula just does not work for me. That's where Man of Steel really just feels more impactful. And even in Batman v Superman, where the end fight is on a fucking remote island, it's still very impactful. It's really because of the events, you know, before, you know, that happened in that movie, before that fight, and in Man of Steel. I mean, it's a great story. And, you know, what's interesting, when we think about it in Man of Steel, Clark Kent technically, Superman, he technically contradicted Pa Kent's wishes, because Kevin Costner's character, Pa Kent, he was way into, I mean, he died to keep his son's identity a secret. But it wasn't until Jor-El, you know, when he heard fucking Jor-El's speech and he saw that Lois Lane was in trouble, he's like, I'm gonna fucking do this. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna go for it. And again, it was his choice, but he was influenced sort of ultimately by Jor-El. And by his father, of course. But here's what's interesting. In Man of Steel, Clark Kent sort of technically contradicts Pa Kent's wishes, and he sort of goes along with Jor-El's wishes. But in Batman v Superman, we saw how Pa Kent was right. How Superman would be castigated. He would be interrogated. He would be judged. And his greatest villain went off of that. Literally. I mean, that was literally what Pa Kent was fearing, was Lex Luthor, right? And sort of how society responded to Superman at the time, and what Doomsday is. So Superman didn't get away with it, you know, like he just because he contradicted his Pa Kent's wishes in Man of Steel, he didn't get away with it. He dealt with that shit in Batman v Superman. Whereas in this movie, I haven't seen Superman 2. Maybe there's a redeeming factor. I haven't seen it. I kind of don't want to see it, but maybe like there are some consequences. I'm not sure. I tried looking at the plot already, and I didn't really see anything that, you know, sort of hinted at the fact that he went back in time and there were consequences to that or something like that. I don't think there was anything like that, which kind of sucks. But yeah, in Superman 2, there are stakes once Zod gets involved, because it's not like Superman can turn back time like as much. It's like you're still gonna have to deal with Zod, I mean, unless you fucking go hundreds and hundreds of years back. I don't know, to the you know, destruction of Krypton to avoid Zod. But it's a lot. So yes, there are stakes with Zod, and he does have to defeat him, and he can't just turn back time. But it just diminishes the seriousness of events when you just can turn back time. And yes, The Flash did that in Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that was much more powerful narratively, but also that's a different character and different abilities. Yeah, that's the whole nature of turning back time anyway, right? Is that it can sort of make everything else after that moment sort of, well, why don't you just turn back time again? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of that too. I guess it's the same idea, right? Zod, Darkseid, the events that were going to happen after Zack Snyder's Justice League, after The Flash turning back time. Darkseid is he is just a beast, right? He can transcend time. He goes beyond all different dimensions. And in Superman the movie, Zod in Superman 2, he's a real menace to Superman, of course, physically, just like we see even in Man of Steel. And turning back time isn't always a solution. I get that. I understand that. But I think for the first movie, Superman the movie, turning back time just reduces the stakes and it makes things sort of weird. I get Superman is supposed to do everything and he's supposed to be perfect and do every fucking ability and everything's fine. No one's dead. Everything's fine. But it just, I don't know. It's too feel-goody. You know, there's no stakes. I guess now that I think about it, really why it worked in The Flash so well is because it worked as a moment for the character to evolve. You know, that was a moment for him to evolve. And that's what happened with The Flash there. He evolved as a character, but also physically, right? He did something that he needed to do, that he wanted to do. His abilities expanded, right? Because of his emotions, because of his father, and all of that. But again, it does happen in Superman the movie. I see the evolution, but the climax and the end result is not as satisfying, it's not as impactful, because going up to that point, it just seems like everything's perfect, too perfect. You know, there's not enough tension, you know? So that event, that moment is just too, it just doesn't have the same impact. Him turning back time, it's still too good to be true. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's just, that's how it sort of feels, even though I understand the evolution, like I said, from Pa Kent's death. And he said, you know, all my powers, all my abilities, and I can't save him. And he ends up doing that with Lois Lane. I get that, but the buildup didn't warrant the end result in that turning back time moment. It just didn't. It all feels like a giant TV episode. Yes, Superman the movie feels like the best TV episode ever. Like, really. You know, in many ways, that's what people say about Marvel films, is that they just feel like, you know, long TV episodes. I think this is an interesting point that I wrote. It's, you know, Man of Steel Superman edges on being the perfect Superman, right? It always edges. And that's beautiful. We know, like, it can't be perfect, right? But it almost can be, and that's why it's awesome. And after Zack Snyder's Justice League, he is he's basically perfect, if not borderline, right? Like, really almost on it. Closer than in Man of Steel, and definitely closer than in Batman v Superman, and closer to that Superman that we all know, right, from the comics. That's what's beautiful, is that it's right there, and that's why it has tension, that's why it's engaging, and that's why it's powerful, and that's why it's moving. You know, at the end of the day, it's just art and cinema and whatever it is you want to do. It can't just be feel-goody, it can't just be perfect, it can't just be everything's fine. There has to be tension. You can have fun and you can have sophistication while teeter-tottering, you know, on that line, you know, and blurring the line. Like, is that the correct term, blurring the line? I don't think so. But you can be on the line and still have fun and still be engaging. Like, you can have all of that. When you go too far and you know, everything's fine and all dandy, it's just, I don't know, it's just, that's not what I want from my Superman character. Superman is he's one of the greatest fictional characters of all time. He's right below Jesus, in my opinion. And Jesus is not a fictional character, but I mean like the idea of Jesus, like the religious one. That can go into a whole other thing. Of course, I'm talking about Superman. We have to talk about Jesus. Yeah, that's why Man of Steel, Superman, and Batman v Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League is just so beautiful because it's right there. It's almost perfect, but there's stakes and it's engaging, you know? Good art is engaging all the time, not fun all the time. If something is fun all the time, that's not engaging. And really, it's why those movies end up really truly inspiring me, and it's really why they're so beautiful to watch, because it is relatable, of course, but it is idealistic at the same time, because you're seeing those characters do the things that you wish you can do. And here's the thing, here's the real fucking thing that I really have to say, is that this is a person, I love Zack Snyder's Superman, but I am a person who, like I said, I debated with the idea of Superman and what I saw for Man of Steel. I was like, why doesn't he smile? Why did he do this? Why did he do that? Da, 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 da. I debated with that. And why was this city destroyed? Why didn't he stop this? Why didn't he stop that? And then I just said, fucking this. I understood the take on the character. He was not perfect. It was his first fucking day as being Superman. He's sort of still a human being with great powers, but his morality is exceptional. But he still has flaws. And again, he's physically not Ultimate Superman yet, so that makes sense. And it's also realistic because you can't fucking save everyone. So once I understood that aspect, I was like, okay, I get it. But I love the Superman that everything's perfect. Nothing to worry about. You know, he's never lies, you know, truth, justice, and the American way. You know, I love all of that. I love all that. I do. You know, it's idealistic. It's beautiful. And that's the point, is that Superman is not a character. He is an ideal. So I get that. But I get that. I see that in Man of Steel as well, and in Batman v Superman. You know, that's the whole point. And of course in Zack Snyder's Justice League. There's a way to do that while being sophisticated, while being grounded, while being engaging. And Superman, the movie, is that. Truth, justice, and the American way. I mean, he literally says it. But perhaps time has passed. It's antiquated. That sort of approach to the character is just too perfect. But I can't help but love it at the same time too. Just who he is, you know, what the movie's trying to show Superman as, just this perfect being. I totally get it. I totally get the allure of it. And in many ways, we've come full circle with Marvel films. That is what those films are. That will always be Superman to me too, but I just love the journey. And it makes it much more impactful. It makes it that much more satisfying. That's what Zack Snyder does. So, again, I understand. I totally get it. And I am the first person that would ever be conflicted with this shit. You know, I would. But I love Superman. I love Christopher Reeve's Superman. But Henry Cavill's Superman to me is Christopher Reeve's Superman with more engagement and more grounded and more relatable. Which is funny because that's what Marvel is. That's what their characters are. They're all relatable. Of course, I gotta talk about the music. The music is gorgeous for the most part. I mean, it's John fucking Williams. But the theme of Superman, the classic theme, I've said it before, hot take, I guess, I prefer Hans Zimmer's score on Superman. I think it's just much grander, it's much more beautiful. I think it's much more hopeful, but it's also, you know, it has the melancholy that it needs, which I know is a lot of you fucking, you know, Christopher Reeve fans are like, no. But the rest of the film soundtrack is very beautiful. But it's really that theme when he saves someone or something like that, and we hear that theme. There's a certain section of it too that I can't stand. Like, I can listen to it, I guess, but there's a certain section in that theme that I'm like, oh, I can't do it. Dude, I'm sorry. It's the times, man. Times have changed. We can evolve, people. We can evolve. I won't talk about the special effects because it's 1978, but I think overall, you know, I mean, the fucking tagline of the movie is, you'll believe a man can fly. I'm sure that if I was a kid in 1978, I believed a man can fly. Watching this now, I'm like, I believe you can have wires and green screen. I believe that. But it's 1978. I'm not going to shit on it, but it's really the flying sequences, the far away flying sequences that kind of look like crap, but it's really, when they're close and whatnot, they're doing what they can, and I think it looks great. And the special effects, you know, obviously using the miniatures, the Tim Burton way, the Star Wars way, creating the miniatures of what you want and filming it, and it looks like the real thing. There's a canyon in the film, of course, and obviously there's giant rocks falling, but you can't do CGI of giant rocks falling, so you have little miniatures of the giant river in the lake, in the canyon, and so there it's all miniatures, of course. It works great. It's very stylistic. I think it's very beautiful. But yeah, I'm not going to shit on the flying scenes, on the far away flying scenes, that is. And some of you, even the close ones, close ones can look a little janky, but it's 1978. But hey, I guess, we can do that with the storytelling as well. I mean, it's 1978 Superman. That's what it's supposed to be. But I'm not going to justify it from the story department. And I understand superhero films and superhero lore and superhero mythos evolves over time as well, just like special effects do. And I understand that. I'm not going to justify it. I'm still going to criticize it the way that I do. And, thank God, we are evolving story-wise. We are creating better superhero movies. And we're creating better superhero music. And we have much better special effects. But also, The Flash, yeah. Sometimes we can go back. Sometimes that does happen. I will say some cool nods just to end it here. The Man of Steel definitely referenced the original Superman the movie when Superman is flying through the canyon when he does his first flight. I mean, it might not be a direct nod, but I'm gonna take it as that, because what he's doing, he's swerving across the canyon. It's kind of what Superman does in Superman the movie when he's going for the nuke. Really reminded me of that. I think that's a cool way of Zack Snyder to pay respect to the original Christopher Reeve. And of course, the classic scene where Henry Cavill Superman is fucking right beaming down below. He's trying to fight the world engine, and there's a very beautiful scene where the camera's zooming in on his face as he's preparing to just fly through the fucking world engine and almost do the impossible, where his face, it's the force of the engine is fucking just blowing his fucking face, and we get a little hint of Christopher Reeve on his face, and that was not intentional. It just came out that way. It's very beautiful. And also Henry Cavill, of course, in Zack Snyder's Justice League and in Batman v Superman, I believe, or I think it just Zack Snyder's Justice League, actually. He's wearing like the plaid jacket, red and black plaid jacket or flannel plaid. One of those fucking shits. It's what Clark wears in Superman the movie. So it's cool nods for sure. And final thing, cool thing that I noticed in Superman the movie, sort of a nod to the animated Flesher Superman. Yeah, there was the animated version of Superman that came out in the 30s or 40s. One of those. Very cool. Ah, fuck. Oh shit, my battery died again. Sort of the same thing that happened with the Flash. But like I was saying, it's a cool nod to the Fleischer animated Superman. It's so fucking classic. It's beautiful. But there's a little nod to it in Superman the movie where with Superman he's going to change outfits from Clark Kent, and he's changing into Superman, and he looks at the phone booth, and then he's like, no, I'm going to go into the alley or whatever. It was pretty cool. It's pretty funny. But yeah, of course, Max Fleischer Superman, he changes in phone booths. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, everyone, those are my thoughts on Superman the movie. I hope you enjoyed this fucking giant video. I'm so sorry for the time that I took away from your life, but I hope you really enjoyed it. A Zack Snyder fan, a Superman fan to the core. These are my heartfelt thoughts on Superman the movie, and Superman as a character, of course, and how he's evolved, and just all of that. I mean all of this just with great intention and with great love towards the character. I love this character, and whether you love Christopher Reeve Superman more than, Henry Cavill Superman, whatever it may be, we all love Superman, but Zack Snyder's Superman is better. I said it. I fucking said it, people. I said it. I gotta commit to an opinion, everyone. You never want to, again, I don't want to do the feel-goody thing where I'm like, well, it's okay, all of our opinions are equal, and like, well, I know all of our opinions are equal, I know, but also Zack Snyder's Superman is better. So we gotta have some assertiveness here, people. But you let me know what your favorite Superman is. What do you think about Superman the movie? What do you think about Zack Snyder's take on Superman? I want to hear all about it. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Give this video a like if you liked, dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content, if you haven't already subscribed. Again, thank you so much for the 1,000 subscribers. It means the world to me. Let's continue building this together even more. Let's Let's push for, I don't know, next is 100,000. I'm gonna go for it. 100,000. Fuck it. Fuck it. And remember, if it's your birthday, happy birthday to you, you beautiful creature. Take care, stay safe, and until next time, you are loved. God, that was kind of cringe, but that was sweet.